solving absolute value equations. So this next problem that we're going to work on will help with really problem type 2, 3, 4, I think. So we're going to do a few different ones though. But the main thing to keep in mind is if you have anything on the outside of your absolute value, you need to get it away, get it on the other side so that your absolute value is isolated or completely solved for before you split things into cases. So remember with absolute value, once you get it down to absolute value of something is equal to a number, then you can split it, or you do split it, into two cases. As long as this number is a positive value, then you would have case 1, stuff inside absolute value is equal to the negative. Case 2, stuff inside absolute value is equal to the positive. Okay, so for this particular one, we need to get rid of this 1 and get rid of the 2. So I'm going to subtract 1 from both sides, and then I'll have 2 absolute value x minus 4 is equal to 6. Now I'm going to divide both sides by 2, and we'll have absolute value x minus 4 equal to 3. So now we're ready to, number 1, confirm this 3 is positive, and number 2, split this into two cases. And maybe I'll do a new column here. So we drop our absolute values, x minus 4. One case is equals negative 3, and the other case, x minus 4 equals positive 3. And this particular one, there's not too much we have to do now that we've split into our cases, just add 4 to both sides. So we'll get x equals 1, and then over here looks like x equals 7. And so we get our two answers, which is typically what you get with absolute value, 1 and 7. And you can check those by plugging them in individually in the original equation and making sure that it balances. Now these two problems down here are sort of special cases. What happens if this k value, what would have been the 3 in this previous problem, what if that's not a positive number? Well, if it's negative, you're done. As long as your absolute value is completely isolated, then that means that this problem has no solution, because an absolute value cannot be negative. So you would just hit no solution in ALEKS. Sometimes they have you choose the little empty set icon. It kind of depends on the problem. Okay, so the other possibility is, what if it's exactly 0? If it's exactly 0, then that means that the stuff inside absolute values is actually just equal to 0. I mean, you could write something kind of silly like x plus 2 equals negative 0, comma, x plus 2 equals 0, but negative 0 is just 0, so you end up getting the same solution twice. So this is the only time that we're going to just get one answer to an absolute value equation. So if we subtract 2 from both sides, we get x equals negative 2, and that is our only answer. So that only happens when your absolute value, after you've got it completely isolated, that you have 0 on the other side of the equals. If you have a negative, then you're going to get no solution. If you have a positive, so here we are, then that's when you have some more work to do with splitting it into the two cases and solving each individual equation. So let's do a couple more. And this is kind of the hardest, most complicated type that you'll see in this homework 6. So solving an absolute value equation, problem type 4. And this is kind of as bad as it gets. There's a couple of things we're going to have to do to get the absolute value isolated. And then once we sort of have to split it, there's some stuff inside the absolute value that's a little more complicated. Okay, so I should probably just do it and it'll make more sense. So I'm going to copy down the problem so I can sort of refer to it a little bit easier. And the first thing that you always want to do with absolute value is get the absolute value part alone. So we need to subtract 6 from both sides, and then we'll also have to deal with that 4, but that can wait. So for right now, 4, absolute value, 2u minus 8, is equal to 72. Okay, so now the 4 is multiplied, so we're going to have to divide by 4. And we'll have absolute value 2u minus 8 is equal to, oh goodness, I think is it 18? Let me just check it. 18. All right, 18 is a positive number, so we can indeed proceed with splitting this into two cases. So I'll do a new column here. So we're going to have drop absolute values, 2u minus 8 equals negative 18, comma, the other case, 2u minus 8 equals positive 18. Now we just solve each of these individually and we'll get two different answers. So we add 8 to both sides, 2u is equal to negative 10, divide by 2, and we get u is negative 5, so that's one of our answers. And then same two steps for this other one, add 8, 2u is, what is that, 26? Divide by 2 on both sides, and u is 13. So those are our two answers, negative 5 and 13. And again, you can check them by just plugging them in up here and making sure you get 78 equals 78.